I'm Amy Summers with Restore Health Consulting. In practical terms, where do you think technology can actually help compounders, providers, and patients?
There are so many changes, Amy, that are occurring. It's not even minute by minute now. I would argue that our industry is moving just as fast as AI. It's crazy how fast it's moving.
Today, we are joined by Jesse Vidrine, the president of Vidrine Pharmaceutical Group, which is the parent company of Boudreaux's new Drugstore, a 503A national compounding pharmacy. He joins us today to discuss how compounding pharmacies are making an impact on healthcare overall.
At some level, peptides are going to have a tremendous impact on healthcare overall.
Where do you see testing fitting into the future of pharmacy?
We haven't really got there yet on a national scale. We haven't really. And the reason I say that is because, at least from our standpoint, there's a number of different types of testing, but for certain types of therapies, the best type of testing is not blood testing.
Looking forward, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, where do you think personalized medicine is actually headed? If it's not just a buzzword to say personalized medicine, but like real world pharmacy practice.
If I had to tell you where I want it to go, it would be
Hello, and welcome to Compounding Interest, the business of personalized medicine. I am Amy Summers with Restore Health Consulting, and I started this podcast recently to talk to industry stakeholders and others in the field that have a great interest in compounding. So today we have Jesse. I want you to introduce yourself because you are renowned. So if you could just introduce yourself to us, Jesse.
Hey, Amy. Good morning. My name is Jesse Vidrine, president of VPG, Vidrine Pharmaceutical Group, parent company to Boudreaux's new Drugstore. We're a 503A national compounding pharmacy based out of South Louisiana.
Thank you. And so for those who don't really know you well yet, how do you describe the work that you're doing in compounding today?
You know, on a high level, I'd like to think that we're having an impact on healthcare overall. We do a lot of different things here. We've been compounding hormones for 65 years. We do quite a bit of steroid compounding as well. And so we have a number of different areas of medicine that we have the opportunity to compound in and really be able to help patients. So on a high level, I think our goal is like a lot of other organizations that are in healthcare. We want to try to help people.
Yeah, the personalized medicine industry, I think that's the goal, right? So you and I have both watched compounding move from something that many people saw as niche to something that feels more visible. And I just want to know from your perspective, what do you think changed? I think I know what changed, but what do you think changed?
Gosh, Amy, it's really interesting. I think that what has occurred over the last, 2 to 3 years has really been incredible to watch, right? So we talk about compounding being niche. That's exactly what it was. Kylie and I came into the store in 2020, and when I would talk to people about compounding, very few, if any of them, knew what compounded medications were, or oh, maybe I had to go by at one time and pick up XYZ. And then over the course of the end of 2021 going into 22 and 23, patients really took control of their patient journey. You saw patients really leaning in and wanting to be healthier. And so I think the patients were the driving force behind helping our industry get to a position where we were no longer niche, but they started to trust us and understand that we are a regulated industry and we do more than just mix things on a countertop. And they drove that through basically making their providers learn what compounded medications were. Now we are where we're here today, where I think I saw a Pew study where the 1 in 8 Americans are on a compounded GLP-1.
Oh, I haven't seen that study. I'll check it
Yeah.
out.
So, I think when you look at the move, it was something that, depending on your, perspective, I think it happened really quickly. You're talking about a
Yeah.
36-month period where people across the nation started adopting compounding. And now it's really interesting because now it has become mainstream. It is being considered an area where people can turn to for a number of different reasons, not just personalized medicine. People are tired of fighting with insurance companies, and compounding is a way to get legitimate therapies at a reasonable cost. And so that's another avenue that I think that's kind of helped take compounded medication away from being niche and move to mainstream.
Do you feel this industry, like the moment that we're in, is a moment of disruption or maturation or correction? Maybe all the above?
Yeah, there's a couple of those catchphrases that are not only our industry, but like corporate America loves to use, disruption. I don't know what I'm disrupting. I think I'm just serving patients. But what I would say is I think you're right. I think it's more of a market correction, right? Which is patients have understood that they want to live healthier, better lives. And the answer is not let's mask the symptoms. Let's find a legitimate solution or avenue to living a healthier life. And I think compounding is really uniquely positioned to be able to help do so. And so when you look at not only compounded GLP-1s, but just like hormones, you look at the root cause of a lot of our problems health wise. I think, hormones and being balanced is also one of those things. So, yeah, I think it's more of a market correction, if anything.
Okay. I feel like it's almost impossible to talk about compounding right now without acknowledging GLP-1s, but I also don't want this whole conversation to be just another conversation about GLP-1s, you know?
Yep.
So what do you think GLP-1s has revealed about the healthcare system more broadly?
I think if you look at what happened over the last 2.5 years, there's a lot of people upset at compounding pharmacies, and rightly so, because we pulled the curtain back, right? You saw that in other areas of healthcare, specifically with the PBMs, right? We saw that happen, and the curtain got pulled back, and it was revealed what everybody already knew. We just didn't have the information to say, "See, I told you so." That's what happened with compounded medications, and I don't want to talk about GLP-1s this whole conversation, but what happened is everybody knew that big pharma was gouging everybody's eyes out over all medications, not just some of them, all of them, right? And compounded medications pulled back that curtain and said, this idea that the quality doesn't exist is false. This idea that testing doesn't occur and that we can't produce, you know, not the same medications, but similar medications, gets very similar results and it be affordable, that was hard for them to take. And there's no doubt about it. If you look at what's happening on Capitol Hill right now with the SAFE Act, and in addition to that, all these other bills that are being pushed in the House, it's very clear that they are upset that got exposed. And the fact of the matter is that, compounded medications, and not just compounded medications can be affordable. They should be affordable. And we got a really clear picture of that in 2022.
You just mentioned the SAFE Act, and just for those who aren't aware, can you talk high level? You don't have to know everything about it, but if you could just speak about what that is.
Yeah. So the SAFE Act is an act being pushed in Congress by a certain state senator that is the home of one of, if not the largest pharmaceutical company in the world. And that act is being presented as one that we need to make compounding more safe by providing more testing and more reporting. And at the surface level, you would go, yes, absolutely. But if you really read the rule and the law, basically what it is a way to completely limit compounding of API. That's what it is. And in doing so, they would basically completely remove compounding of all medications, not any one category of medication, but all of them. That would be hormones. That would be, your little baby girl that just had open heart surgery and she needs a compounded version of a medication because they don't make that dose for a 7-year-old. Like, all categories, they would essentially destroy compounding and personalized medicine. So that's what the goal of the bill is, but it's proposed as something totally different. But if you really read it, that's what it's designed to do.
Wow, okay. So we should be watching that one.
Yeah.
I know this was a detour, but circling back then to what we were talking about, a little bit about GLP-1s, but the healthcare system. So I guess I just want to know, with regards to the GLP-1 craze and compounding, was it really just about the drug product, or was it also about access, pricing, the patient experience, and maybe how people now expect healthcare to work? I'm really just interested in like what's broken maybe in the healthcare system and how the GLP-1 shortage seemed to have like accelerated this.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's all of those things combined. I think anytime, Amy, you look at an issue or a problem or an opportunity or a big change, people want to contribute it to one determining driving factor. Oh, this is happening because of X. And that's not the way things work, right? So to your point, Yes, cost was certainly a factor. Access was one of the biggest things, right? I would argue right now that there is a bigger shortage of GLP-1s right now than there was 2.5 years ago.
Really? How is that? Or why is that? Why do you say that?
503Bs are no longer able to produce it. They are no longer able to compound with a commercially available product because it's not in shortage and it's not on the 503B bulks list. 503B compounding pharmacies were filling a massive void in the market, and that void has shifted now. But I would argue that there's still a massive shortage of GLP-1s.
Do you have any, like, personal knowledge? Do you have prescribers calling saying, "I can't get this branded drug"? Do you compound something? Are you getting calls from patients? Is there anything like that that you're aware of?
I think the same activities that you were seeing in 2022 still certainly exist today. There's no doubt about that. But as far as when you talk about how we want medication delivered and what we want access to it, I would ask 10 of your closest friends, when's the last time that they had a good healthcare experience? Meaning from the time they saw their doctor all the way to when they got their medication, right? When's the last time
Yeah.
they had a healthcare experience? They haven't. Like, and we all know that, right? Going to seeing the doctor, waiting an hour and a half in a waiting room with a doctor when you've got an hour lunch break, right? All the
Yeah.
way to getting to a pharmacy and trying to get a commercially available drug to where you got to fight with insurance and prior authorizations have to happen. The pharmacy's losing money. It's frankly terrible system for everybody involved, not only the healthcare professionals, but the patients and the businesses as well, outside of just a small collection of companies, right? So you've seen this evolution of telehealth companies go, there's very clearly an issue with the market. We're going to try to correct that with access to medications. And you've seen compounding pharmacies, specifically with other types of medications, hormones, dermatology. There's a lot of different areas there, ED issues, all of these different health issues, and compounded medications are making that process, along with telehealth companies, more streamlined and more affordable, arguably with better results.
Yeah, I was gonna share something personal. We're supposed to in our family have, like, a pretty good insurance, but it's not really covering as much as it used to. I don't know what's going on. And then to your point, like me just trying to navigate the American healthcare system is just a challenge. And I don't have a lot of time personally in this life stage that I'm in with kids and sports and driving. I don't have a lot of time left to take care of myself. And I could see that how, the average American who might be in a life stage that I'm at, that, maybe just having an encounter from the comfort of my own home, and if something could get shipped to me, and if insurance isn't gonna pay for it anyway, then just, charge me the fee for the service, and if it's a reasonable, practical price, I would see that that might be attractive to the average American.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, you pretty much have to have a 4-year degree in insurance and work at one of the organizations to be able to decode and understand what your true benefits are. I think we've all had that experience, and it's great because what we're seeing is capitalism at work, which is there's very clearly with the healthcare system, and that's why these other companies are able to come in and be successful.
Yeah, I was gonna just have a follow-up question, but it looks like we already talked about that. Do you think this moment has permanently changed patient expectations around access, convenience, customization, and direct to patient care? I think we're just already starting to talk about it, but any other additions that you want to add to it?
I just think that you look at our industry right now, and there's a lot of really unique things happening, not only from like a dosage form standpoint, right?
Okay.
Uh, how people take medications, but there are lots of other things, Amy, that are happening in our industry that are super exciting. Peptides obviously is one of those, or the potential thereof. So when you think about that, one of the things that we're really focused on right now is actually shortening and compressing that timeline.
The timeline from when you get a prescription to when it comes to you?
Right, but really what we're talking about is shortening the timeline of being able to have the patient have better access to not only the prescriber, but the pharmacy as well. So what we've identified is for personalized medicine to be really impactful, there has to be multiple touch points, and there has to be more testing and those types of things to be able to monitor patients. However, what we know is that that's very disjointed right now, and the time frame is very long. And so what we're working on is how do we streamline that process with the organizations that we work with to be able to touch patients more often and help them get a better experience instead of you go to the pharmacy, you pick up your prescription, or it gets shipped to your house in the end, right? And I think that's one of the exciting things that we're working on right now.
Very good. This is really the centerpiece question of our whole talk today. It's looking ahead into the future. So, looking forward, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, where do you think personalized medicine is actually headed? If it's not just a buzzword to say personalized medicine, but like real world pharmacy practice, where do you think we're going?
Gosh, if I could tell the future, Amy, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. I can tell you what I hope it turns out to be. You've seen compounded medication in the past with certain types of drug classes have some successes and also had some really big failures. And if I had to tell you where I want it to go, it would be one where we can look back in, you know, 20 years when the next batch of telehealth providers and owners and compounding pharmacy owners look back and go, boy, they really got it right. I really do believe that personalized medicine is a problem that, quote, we can solve. But when I mean solve, I mean be able to provide to the nation. That's where I believe that it's going. I think more options, more personalized medicine for each individual, where it's not something that is only for a certain subset of individuals. And I think we've began to see that at a certain degree with GLP-1s. I think the other thing is what we're seeing is compounding is to a certain degree leading the way or trying to lead the way on helping people live healthier and to be more proactive and preventative rather than let's wait until we get really sick and then let's stay on medication for the rest of our lives. Right. So I think that's where we're going. I think access is again going to be something that's going to be transformational, meaning we're going to be able to have access even faster than we do now. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where I see it going.
So, almost like personalized medicine, but at a larger scale. So, I could have my own compound prepared for me that's based on my situation, maybe my genetics, my experiences or epigenetics. Is that what you're saying? Something like that?
You're looking at testing playing a larger and larger role in what we do every day. And certainly we're trying to incorporate that on a larger scale. And so, yes, when you look at testing and consistency of that testing and the providers following up with the patients and vice versa to get a better outcome, yes, I do believe that's where it's going. And the reason being is because technology is playing a larger role into what we do every day. And that's a great thing because it allows us to touch more patients. So I think us, like every other industry in the country, we're leveraging technology to the best of our ability to be able to help patients have a better outcome.
Great. We're going to get to that here in a second. I want to know from you, where do you see the strongest clinical need for compounded medications today when the commercially available option does not fit the patient? Do you have any ideas?
I naturally go to hormones.
Yeah.
Um, I naturally go to hormones. We've been doing it longer than just about anybody in the country. And so we've known for a really long time, especially now that they've removed the black box warning label back in November, that hormones has been one of the major root causes of, you know, the way that we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. And I think that if we talk about really big impacts from a provider and patient standpoint, that's the where things are leaning towards is certainly hormones. I don't know if I answered that question, Amy. I hope I
You
did.
did. You did. I was just thinking in my head, APC came out with some statistic, and I'm going to get it wrong, but it was something like the average compounding pharmacy, I think it's something like 30%. The average compounder like does hormones, maybe to that. Maybe it's even more. I forget. Sorry. But yeah, I think that's one of the main therapeutic areas I would say that's very much personalized and I guess popular, if you would use that word.
Look at testosterone replacement therapy, which falls underneath BHRT or hormone replacement therapy. I mean, it's massive, right? It's huge, and I think that what you're seeing is really a resurgence of women going, I'm not going to accept that my OBGYN tells me that I can't be on hormones anymore. I'm not going to accept it because, again, that's why I said the GLP-1 thing kind of opened the door. Because in the past, what did they tell you? I mean, the patients would go into their doctor and they'd say, "Hey, I want to get on a compounded hormone, or I want to get on a this or that," and they'd go, "Ah, drink some water, take a run, go get a nap, you'll be all right." Specifically with hormones, and that has gone out the window.
Well, it's also the menopause cocktail too, right? Like, here's your Prozac, here's your other things.
That's
Yeah,
right. Let's solve the real problem, which is get you tested and get you balanced.
right.
Um, so yeah,
Here's a Band-Aid for a symptom.
that's right.
For sure. I have a more of a sensitive question, and we can see, if you're comfortable answering, but I'm truly genuinely curious of your answer. So, how do you feel, or how do you think compounding pharmacies can explain the difference between true patient-driven customization and simply just making the same product repeatedly because there's market demand?
Amy, if you look at what compounding medicine is, and you look at the rules and the laws, but also you look at what the drugs do and what the side effects are, and you look at what the demand are for patients. I mean, it's pretty clear we're not just doing one thing. We have a number of different medications, and we make one-offs all day long, every day. But specifically, you know, if you look at the doses, typically the way that manufactured drugs work is that they're going to make one drug and they're going to make it in 4 to 5 different doses and they're going to push that out to the masses, right? Whereas there are a lot of people that fall in between, in front of, or behind of those doses, right? And I feel that when you look at what we do, which is make personalized medicine, I think that directly answers or addresses your question, which is we are addressing the patients that are their needs are not being met by the commercially available products. And that's why compounding exists today, right?
Sure.
Uh, I think some people would say, oh, well, you're putting, quote, an additive. We compound lots of different APIs, right? And we compound lots of different, quote, additives, amino acids, different types of things to specifically address side effects. And so those two things in combination, it's very clear that we're not here to be competition to big pharma. That was never our goal. That's not what compounding pharmacies are designed for. We are designed to specifically address and to help the patients that can't get help from commercially available products. And I would ask yourself, how many times have you ever taken a commercially available product and it's been ineffective? How many times has that happened to people that you know or your loved ones? It's a regular occurrence. That doesn't mean that the drug doesn't work for other people. It just doesn't work for those people. So this idea that it can be only one or the other, I don't think that's the answer. Big pharma has the biggest role to play in the healthcare industry, arguably. Compounding also has a role. So I think this idea that we're at odds with one another, or that we're trying to do what one another's doing, I think that's incorrect. I think we're doing something totally different. And the healthcare system and our patients need that flexibility, right?
Okay.
They need flexibility of a commercially available drug, and you can go pick it up on any corner at the drop of a hat, right? But also at the same time, they also need personalized medication.
I don't mean to cut you off. I want to talk this out operationally with you to wrap my brain around it. So, in a few years ago, we had an update in USP 797, and it added a lot of quality layers to the operational requirements. And one of which was the concept of batches. They're going to limit the number of units you can make to 250 units. And then also there's the concept of the beyond use dating, and they gave a lot of stratified options depending on what you were going to do. If you were going to batch, if you needed it a certain temperature that it was going to be stored at, if you needed a certain day supply. And then I'm also going to sort of talk around here that the compounders of yesteryear, it seems like they used to have a much more hyper personalized portfolio or formulary of medicines, but it feels to me that the USP update almost created this now, well, if we're gonna have these requests, and maybe we do have lanes of, maybe there's like 12 lanes of requests that we get, we're gonna maybe not be able to meet 1,500 different hyper personalized requests, but maybe it's more like 100 or 200. Do you know what I'm getting at? Like, how can you operationalize the beyond use dating constraints to be able to give a patient a meaningful day supply without having to repurchase it or get it shipped every few days? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Oh, that's deep, Amy. Uh, that's deep. What I would say is that it sounds like that regulation is working exactly the way it's designed, right? So as the market changes, regulation should try to do its best to try to keep up. And I think that that's what you're seeing. Compounding pharmacies are getting better at business and understanding how to ensure not only that they're reaching as many patients as they can, but building out a sustainable business model. And so what you've seen is compounding pharmacies, as you were saying, doing anticipatory compounding, creating batches of 250 at least for 503As, but then also kind of what I would say is, and this is not a bad thing. It sounds like a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. Narrowing down kind of their product line offerings, right? So, I mean, at our pharmacy, we still make magic mouthwashes, right? We don't have we don't have requests every day for magic mouthwash, but the fact of the matter is that we still have the capacity to do it, quote, one-offs, and I kind of mentioned that earlier. But those two things shouldn't be considered that they conflict in what we're actually doing as a business if we're also making larger batches of things, right? And I think, frankly, Amy, that really proves or legitimizes what we're doing and the argument behind compounding pharmacies really providing a need and addressing those gaps in healthcare. Because if we're making larger batches and there are more requests for those specific patient specific medications, then that would have to lead us to believe that there are more people in those gaps than maybe we originally understood. Um,
Yeah.
so, so I think that's kind of the way that I view things, Amy, with respect to larger batches, anticipatory compounding, increasing regulatory burden, which I would say is increasing by the day, which is a good thing for our industry, right? It really makes the whole point about compounding medications not being compounded in a legitimate fashion completely irrelevant. What it really does is it shows the ignorance of those individuals who make those types of comments. Walk into a national 503A and tell me that they are not compounding at the highest levels possible, and frankly, above regulation. So yeah.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. I'm going to switch now to the peptide discussion and hopefully not getting too sensitive. But peptides are obviously one of the biggest topics in the industry right now. And so, without getting into legal advice or anything too specific, why do you think peptides have captured so much attention?
I think for the reason that I said early on, people want to live healthier and they believe right now that there is an opportunity with peptides to live a healthier life. And if we also understand that GLP-1s are peptides, right? They're just a different peptide. Kind of the proof's in the pudding, right? We already saw it. GLP-1s, we can dramatically improve our lives from an obesity standpoint, right? Which has a massive waterfall effect in different areas of our overall health. And so we're seeing that, and the nation is seeing that, and they're going, if GLP-1s are a peptide and they can have such a transformational change in my life, what can these other peptides do? Right. So I don't know if peptides are going to turn out to be the greatest thing ever in this huge change in healthcare and in patient health, but I'm interested to see how everything plays out. That's for sure.
What do you think the industry needs to get right if peptides are going to be part of the future conversation in a responsible way?
Ooh, that's that's unpacking a lot there, Amy. I mean, it's very clear. We all know it that there's a gray market in the U.S. right now, right? It is very clear, and I think being able to at a federal and state level curtail that, rein that in, get that out of the marketplace, and by doing so, also trusting and supporting the organizations and the clinics and the pharmacies that are doing it properly and following the rules, I think it's going to be probably the biggest thing, right? So making sure the bad actors are not able to continue to operate, but at the same time, provide the people that are doing it right the flexibility that they need from a regulatory standpoint, I think is is really, really, really important. And that's much easier said than done, Amy, right? At a regulatory level, either at the state board of pharmacy or the federal level, it's that line is very narrow, right? That line is very narrow, and I do not want to be in the seat of FDA regulators and lawmakers, or also
Yeah.
boards of pharmacy. Those are really difficult jobs. Those are really difficult jobs. So I understand that, but I do think that at some level, peptides are going to have a tremendous impact on healthcare overall. And if we think what's going to happen happens, yeah, at the end of the month, and things change for compounded peptides, I think we're gonna have a front row seat to figure out if peptides are or have the ability to do what they say they're gonna do.
Yeah, for sure. This segues nicely into my next question. It's regarding regulations. So, one theme that we keep hearing from operators is that the rules can feel very different depending on where you're sitting. So, like in my state of California versus yours in Louisiana. So, how does the state by state variation affect pharmacy owners who are actually trying to build responsibility or responsibly?
Compliance and quality is what leads our organization, and I don't know how you can compete on a national scale without that not being like your number one driving force of your entire organization. If quality and compliance is not the number one thing, I don't think that your organization is positioned in a spot long term to be successful. I feel like it's the most important thing that we look at every day, and our organization certainly believes that. So, as far as how you navigate that, I mean, it is a very complex, very nuanced industry right now, and certainly when you look at different states, state by state, I think that it makes more sense to, I think, the direction that we're going towards with NABP. If
Yeah.
you look at it, NABP consolidating licensing and test taking for the MPJE for pharmacists. Don't tell Kylie that. My wife, she'll get very upset. I think she took 32 MPJEs in like less than a year. So,
Oh, that's
yeah,
rough.
yeah, what I would say is I think we're naturally in the right direction. There will never be a time where, all states are consolidated. I think that's also a good thing. States need to be able to have the ability to do what's right by people that live in that state. But at the same time, certainly, leveraging USP and figuring out, where there's some more common ground and some more consistency there, specifically for 503As and Bs. I think would be incredibly helpful, not just pharmacies, patients, right? Regulators. Like, let's talk about the people actually having to uphold these things, right? I think I think all the parties win when there is a more consistency in regulation.
Yeah, I was just thinking, in our consulting practice, we not only keep seeing requests for us to help them with accreditation, but I even keep thinking for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, like NABP is really trying to have more of a standardized approach. Not that every state will adopt it, but they have a pretty good inspection type tool that they use. And I don't know, I appreciate it if a pharmacy is going to get that accreditation. And I think the bonus or the side benefit is you might have a more streamlined approach to getting those multi-state licenses. I can see it's also pretty difficult if you live in an area on the ed like a border where your patients might live in a couple of states or a few states that are surrounding you. So it's possibly, especially in today's day and age where the world seems to be getting smaller, people seem to be needing, multi-state care. Let's put it that way. I think with that, we did talk a little bit about telehealth, but I do want to circle back, I guess, from the pharmacy side. What are the operational challenges when care becomes faster, more digital, and more direct to patient?
Gosh, without getting too much in the weeds, we've invested heavily on the IT side, on the automation side. I hate this catchphrase. I tried to stop using it. Like, I know like AI has now dominated our lives and will for the next probably 20 to 30 years. I already have AI fatigue. So what I would say is we've made considerable investments in that. When you look at telehealth, it's a great thing. They are pushing the process forward. They are pushing the envelope forward. And I would argue that, the leading compounding pharmacies in the nation, and I would like to consider us to be one of those, is right along their side, supporting them, helping them solve these really big challenges that in the past, a traditional clinic owner who may be an MD or a provider, he didn't have the bandwidth or the quote capital stack or any of those other things to go along to help solve some of these more complex problems. And so what we're seeing is, I think, is telehealth has changed for the better. Look, there's always going to be something that's not perfect, and there's going to be some, I don't want to say bad things, but there's certainly some things that are not always the best. But operationally, from an operations standpoint, certainly it's a heavy lift when you're working with telehealth companies, right? Because of not only volume, but a lot of other things, right? It takes a lot of build out to get those relationships moving. It's not just flipping a switch, right? It takes teams of people to get those relationships moving in the right direction.
Do you think telehealth and compounding can work together in a way that improves access while still preserving appropriate clinical oversight?
I think it's already doing that. I mean, look, there is no doubt in my mind that we need better clinical oversight and we need to improve on that, right? But I think in any industry that you're looking at, when it starts, it's there's going to have some flaws. I mean, the internet wasn't perfect when it started either, right? Not that I'm comparing the two, but certainly when industries start and they start developing, or new industries start developing, there's going to be issues. There's going to be flaws, and I believe that the leaders in this space, the leading compounding pharmacies and telehealth companies, they are inherently aware of that. We need to do our best to try to address and try to provide more patient oversight. And I believe that we're working on that every day. It's one of the things that I mentioned earlier about testing. So, yes, there's no doubt in my mind that the people that are leading this industry have the right mindset because they really are trying to take care of patients first. And honestly, when you talk about, Amy, like a better patient outcome and a better experience, it's led by having more consistent touch points and better patient oversight. And so, yes, I believe that both of those things can happen. Obviously, we're not there yet, meaning we're not doing the best that we can, but we're going to get there. I have no doubt in my mind.
I want to go back to AI and also talk about technology and automation. In practical terms, where do you think technology can actually help compounders, providers, and patients? I think you're kind of hitting on it a little bit there, but where do you think this technology can actually help us?
There's a lot of different thoughts here. From what I understand right now, and I'm learning every day. So probably after this podcast, what I've learned will probably not be right anymore. But the fact is that when you look at the LLMs specifically to AI, it's only as good as the data that's being put into it, right? Or that it has access to. And so what we're seeing is we're seeing kind of a switch, if you will, to different platforms that are AI driven with, I would say, better data, right? So I certainly see that as an area that's going to consistently improve. There are platforms out there, and I'm not going to name any because I don't have any relationships with them and haven't spent enough time using them. But there are certainly some really good platforms out there that are based off of what I would say like legitimate clinical data rather than Google and what people are putting on Reddit. And so I think the other thing is when you look at compounding, compounding is inherently complex, right? We're making patient specific medications every day, all day long. There are lots of different APIs. There's a ton of regulation. There's just a lot of different things or workflows that go into this, right? And so what we have seen is specifically with workflow is how we automate those processes to do exactly what we're talking about, which is to have more touch points with patients and to be able to deliver healthcare faster. And that's how our organization is leveraging not only AI, but just automation, in and of itself, kind of more broadly, I guess you would say, which is we are making our processes that were normally incredibly complex, repeatable faster with a lower margin of error, right? So I think that's something that we're really focused on right now as an organization, which is driving that automation into pharmacy that helps us be more accurate. I love asking this question all the time. I ask pharmacy owners, I'm like, accurate or fast? and the answer is always accurate, right? But we can't discredit fast, right? Because what
Yeah.
do patients want now? Patients want things right now, and they
They
deserve
want it
them right.
now.
They want it now. We want it right now. We want a 24-hour turnaround time. I want to see my doctor and I want my
Yeah.
medication tomorrow or the same day, right? And so we have that, we're building that out in our models. That's for sure. Focused on that.
We mentioned it a minute ago, but I do want to circle back one more time about testing, especially I'm talking patient testing, especially for things like hormones and other personalized therapies. So, where do you see testing fitting into the future of pharmacy?
I think that hasn't we haven't really got there yet. On a national scale. We haven't really, and the reason I say that is because, at least from our standpoint, there's a number of different types of testing, but for certain types of therapies, the best type of testing is not blood testing, right? You have different types of testing, urine testing, saliva testing. So you have these different types of testing that are more applicable and get a better result depending on which therapies you go to. I believe that we're starting to come into this, and I believe that compounding pharmacies and telehealth in tandem, working together, are going to be who's really going to drive this. We've always known that testing is important, but how do you get it to patients consistently month after month after month? That's the real question. And so I think what you're going to see in the coming months is more relationships being built with testing organizations. And I think that you're already starting to see this. There are companies out there right now that have these cortisol hormone meters that are attached to apps in your phone, right? So you can take a test on the run in the morning time, in the afternoon, and it automatically gets downloaded to your phone. You're able to share those results with your providers, with the compounding pharmacy. They're able to analyze those results at the drop of a hat and make adjustments where needed. And so that's where I see it going. Certainly, that's where I hope it goes, because we know that if we're able to test patients more frequently, right, and have higher touch points and make those adjustments instead of come back and see me in 30 days, I think that the patient is who wins, right? And so that's certainly something that's top of mind for us, and that we're working on. And I think that's going to drive kind of the next wave of healthcare specific, not only with peptides, but I think with hormones and GLP-1s and all of the above.
I have one more question for you, Jesse. You're almost done. If we're going to have this conversation again 10 years from now, what do you hope that we're saying about this moment in compounding?
Yeah, I kind of hit on it earlier. I think that our industry, and when I mean ours, I'm talking about compounding pharmacies, 503As, 503Bs. I think that we have an opportunity to make a meaningful impact that is felt long term in healthcare on a really big scale. And I consider to be telehealth also kind of in that bucket. And, you know, I hope that in 20 years, we're able to look back at this and say the new owners, the new people leading healthcare are going to be able to look back on us and say they got it right. They didn't botch it. That they nailed it. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to be mindful of in our organization. There are so many changes, Amy, that are occurring. It's not even minute by minute now. It's just so. I would argue that our industry is moving just as fast as AI. It's crazy how fast it's moving. And being able to get that right is going to be really difficult. And I think it's dependent on, those key thought leaders in our space, and what their take is on things and how they see things happening. The people that are leading organizations that represent us on Capitol Hill. There's a number of different players here that are going to be involved. And I think if we can look at it from that viewpoint, which is, let's try to get this one right. I think that's the big thing that we're trying to be mindful of down the road. And I think that's what we're going to be talking about, which is they got it right. They made a meaningful impact that it's had a long-term success, and patients won. That's what it is.
I actually was thinking the same words, and then the patient wins. It was so great talking to you, Jesse. Thank you so much for answering my rapid fire questions. Some of them were deep, some of them were maybe odd or sensitive, but I think you did a good job. So thanks for being here with me.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure, Amy. The opportunity to sit down and talk to you is always fun, and I'm hopeful that we'll get to catch up very soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. All right. Well, thank you so much. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.